Hi girls, it's Miss Tricia. Hope you all are doing well. Today we are going to be doing some math using origami. So origami is the Japanese art of paper folding, but it also is a way that people who study math, or mathematicians, sometimes study a field called geometry. So geometry is math that involves shapes. So any shape you can think of, from an octagon like this one, it has 8 sides like a stop sign does, to rectangles, to squares. Today, we're going to be making this octagon, but it's not just an octagon. It's one that transforms and slides together to become this cool star shape. But before we can start folding, we have to prep. So, this starting shape has to be a square. We're going to need 8 squares. But in order to do that, we have to cut them out. So I take a normal piece of paper. You can see I already have some folds on there, and I fold it in half like a hamburger. What I did is I measured with a ruler. I measured the length of this short side. You see that we've got a smaller rectangle now. So measure the short side. For me, this short side is 5 inches. And then using that ruler, I drew a line 5 inches over on the long side, and I folded on it. And then I'll cut along these lines. So this line here and this center fold, and that should give you 2 squares. Now remember, in order to make our octagon, which has 8 sides, we'll need 8 squares. So we are going to walk through folding one of the squares, and you're going to have to do this 8 times. But I'm going to walk you through once, and then you can replay this part for instructions on how to do all the rest. They're all going to be the same. So I have one of my squares that I cut out here in front of me. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to fold over from one corner to the opposite corner. And I'm going to do that, and it's going to end up making a triangle shape. I'm going to press down along that fold. I'm going to have a triangle shape. And this triangle is an isosceles triangle. It has 2 sides that are the same length. This side and this side are the same length because they were the sides of the square. And then this longer side. Now I'm going to take this triangle and I'm going to unfold it so it goes back to the square that it was before. Now we're going to do the same thing, but with the different corners. So the corners that currently have a fold between them. We're going to fold this corner all the way across to the other. And we're going to do the same pressing in of that fold, making another isosceles triangle with 2 sides that are the same and one side that's longer. And then we're going to do the same thing where we unfold that again. So now we should have an X in our paper. The next step is we're going to fold it like a rectangle. So we're going to fold this side over to line up with the other side. We're going to fold it in half this way instead of the diagonals we had been doing before. And we're going to press in on that fold as well. So now we have a rectangle instead of the square, and we're going to unfold it again. So now we have our 2 lines for our X and our center line. So our next step is we're going to take this corner on one side of the center line, and we're going to fold it in to this center point where the X crosses. And this one you will not fold back, so you'll make a little triangle and you'll keep it right there. Now on the other side of this center line, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take this corner and we're going to fold it into the center where the X meets. And we're going to make another triangle there. So now we've made a pentagon, right? We have 5 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But we're not done yet. So our next step is we still have this center line. We're going to fold the whole shape along it. And just take one side and fold it over along that center line. We're going to press down on all the folds that we've made. So now we have what we call a trapezoid. It has 4 sides, and 2 sides are parallel, which means they'll never touch, even if they go on forever. They'll be exactly the same distance apart. And we have 2 sides that are not parallel. So if I kept drawing these lines, eventually my fingers would cross. But we're almost done, we're not quite there. So we have these diagonals that we have left over from our X fold. We're going to pick up our nice little trapezoid we have here. We're going to take this nice squared off corner. We're going to push it inside. So it should start to expand a little bit. We're going to push it inside and we're going to fold the other way along those folds that we had. So it was out, we're going to just tuck it in. And we're going to push down on all the folds we had made before in the other direction. So now we should have a nice parallelogram, which has 4 sides, and each pair is parallel. They'll never touch even if you keep going in any direction. So we have these 2 sides which are parallel, they're our short sides, and these 2 sides which are parallel, which are our longer sides. So this is 1. You need to make 8 parallelograms before you're ready for the next step, which is putting the whole octagon together. So you can either pause the video here, or you can go back and replay it if it would be helpful to have the directions again. I have here my 8 parallelograms that I made. I ended up skipping over sort of my making all of them just to prevent the video from being too long. But I did that same step that I showed in the last clip. I just did that 8 times over. So now our next step is to assemble our octagon. So I made 4 of each color so I can have that alternating pattern I had on that first octagon you saw. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take 1 parallelogram of each color, and I'm going to take the short sides. There's one short side that has a fold, you can't poke your finger in it, and there's one short side that opens up. I can stick my finger in between the layers of the green. So I'm going to take both my parallelograms and I'm going to line them up so the short sides are away from me. And the hard fold where I can't poke my finger through is the side that's away from me for both of them. You can see that I can't put my finger in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this other fold and I'm going to open it up. And I'm going to take this second parallelogram and I'm going to tuck it inside all the way. But I find it a little bit easier if you have just a little strip of this second parallelogram poking up outside of there. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to tuck in the little tails that we have here poking out. So we're going to take them, we're going to tuck them inside of this pink parallelogram. We're going to tuck 1, 2, and I'll pick it up to show you. So this pink parallelogram, it opens, and I've tucked the 2 tails up inside of it. And then I lay it back down. So I want to have that alternating stripe pattern, so my next parallelogram is going to be one of the green ones, and I'm just going to do the same thing I just did. I just open up one side, and I make sure I've got this hard fold away from me, and I tuck it inside with a little bit poking out, and I then tuck in the tails. And then I'll go on and do the next one. So I make sure I've lined up my parallelograms with that hard fold away from me, and the short sides there, tuck inside, a little bit poking out, and then tuck in these tails. Make sure you press down on those folds so that they stay nicely. I'm going back and forth, so it'll be a green one next. I'll do the same thing, lining up my parallelograms, tucking it inside, tucking in the tails, go back to pink, and it's easiest if you have about the same amount poking up each time, but if it's a little bit different, it's not going to hurt very much. So line up our parallelograms, tuck one inside the other, make sure you're tucking in the tails. And so now I'm almost done. I've got one more to add, and I'm making sure that this first parallelogram that I started with is underneath the other one. It's not inside of it. Hold these under. So now we're going to take this and we're going to put that first parallelogram inside, like we did with all the others. Oh, my tails popped out. And then we're going to tuck in these tails. You want to make sure you're not putting them over this other layer, you're tucking them to either side. So I'll hold it up in just a second to show that the 2 tails that I tucked in there's a gap between them and this center pink. I didn't put them over the center pink because otherwise it won't slide. So here we have our octagon. I'm gonna give it a little bit of sliding just to get it into the right shape. So we have our octagon here, and it'll slide together to make that nice star that we saw at the beginning. And it'll slide back out. Well, I hope you girls had as much fun as I did on our origami adventure. You can see I've slid my octagon in so it makes its nice little star shape. We all hope you girls are staying happy and healthy at home and being safe. And I'm sure the Girls Inc. staff looks forward to seeing you again soon.